Let me ask you a question. Do you recognize this song? I can almost guarantee with 100% confidence that if you are watching this video on YouTube, you have. In fact, if you've heard that song, I can almost guarantee you've also heard this one. It is at this point you may be wondering, hey Liam, what the heck do these songs have in common? How are they related? Well, I'll tell you. The thing that connects them is their composer, Kevin MacLeod. Truly, honestly, this man is the father of internet music, and it's not a competition. He unknowingly was inundating our young brains with his melodies and infiltrating our minds with his themes from day one. And I'm going to assume that stumbling upon his music once again has been a shared experience for us all. And working under that assumption, I'm going to say that every time you've heard his music, you also immediately get sent right back to where you were the first time you heard it. However simple, this music is raw, unadulterated, innocent fun, and no matter how many times you hear it, it literally never gets old. But what I want to look at today is the history behind the creation and usage of this music, and I want to take a closer look at each of his most famous tracks. So Kevin's music career started live, actually, where he would play for an improv comedy troupe in various musical styles on demand. From there, he worked for a media company creating stock music to use in ads and built them a pretty large library of music, which was much more convenient than buying expensive and complicated packs of stock music, which was the common thing that companies did at that time. But it was in 2001, when the internet really started to pick up pace, that Kevin's music career would change forever. Three guys named Lawrence Lessig, Eric Eldred, and Hal Abelson came along and invented the highly groundbreaking platform Creative Commons, which changed how people would own things on the internet a lot. What's ironic about it, actually, is that in essence, if Creative Commons had their way, people wouldn't own things on the internet. Or at least they would make it much easier for other people to build off of things that were created on the web. And Kevin decided he would jump on this right away because he saw how the internet was evolving and wanted to get involved and help people out. So then, 2001, his journey started to create a massive music library that people could use for free if they credited his name. He used a Creative Commons Zero license, which meant that people were free to do whatever they wanted with his music. It quite literally didn't matter at all. This included being able to make money off of things they made that involved his music, which was much different than how copyright worked at the time. Because of this, his music became insanely popular. To this day, it's used in blockbuster movies, it's used in common YouTube videos, it's used in everything. And you can find it on his website, incompetech.com. He really revolutionized how people were able to download free music, and honestly, the internet has changed a lot just because of this one man. So it's actually really hard to trace back the first time his music was ever used, considering this music has stretched so far beyond just YouTube and has been used in games, movies, and so much more, which we just covered. If you ask the internet, though, people will tell you that it was Vanoss Gaming that first at least popularized his music by using it in his early videos. And this does check out because honestly, a lot of YouTube tropes can be traced back to his channel. And so when that whole generation of Vanoss-inspired channels rolled around, they used this music as well because not only is it a fantastic resource, but it also complements many YouTube video formats. And so for a few years, Kevin's music was a mainstay of YouTube and Vimeo and Vine videos until self-awareness kicked in. Once these videos started to age, people looked at using this music as cheesy and low effort. That, combined with the bar rising for internet videos, forced Kevin's music out of people's peripheral for a long time. That is, until TikTok. Kevin's music, specifically Monkeys Spinning Monkeys, blew up in the most TikTok way possible, where it suddenly became completely larger than life. It sits as currently the second most used sound on the platform and has been cemented as the silly cat video filmed by a 40-year-old theme song. And honestly, if you ask me, that's a decent legacy for Kevin's music. Of course, it will always be used in memes or the occasional video you watch, but this music, especially compared to what it once was, is living in its retirement home. And like I said, that maybe is not such a bad thing. It really signifies the fact that people have started to level up their video creation on the internet. I couldn't tell you the amount of times I checked the description of a video I like and see that the creator made their own music. So to me, that's a trade-off that I think the internet is also willing to make. More unique music choices over easier access. But in general, I think it could be summarized that his music is absolutely game-changing and has been for years on YouTube and multiple other platforms, and I think it will always stay at least a little bit that way. Okay, now it's nostalgia time. So now what I want to do is briefly take a look at some of the songs independently and ask the question, how did they become just so impactful? So there's 3 songs that really show Kevin's impact if you were to ask me, and those are the 3 I plan on covering today. And they may not be the most obvious at first, but I think by the end we'll get a pretty clear picture of how this actually happened. And the first of those 3 songs is Fluffing a Duck. I feel like this song is important because it represents the Kevin MacLeod songs that have been used for a more silly and ironic purpose. Let's have a listen. So the first thing that most people aptly notice is the trombone, which if you know anything about music, the trombone on its own outside of jazz is always unavoidably silly and kind of self-aware. This trombone line would be the equivalent of the flute in Monkeys Spinning Monkeys, the staccato strings in Sneaky Snitch, and the bassoon in Investigations. And I know you all recognize all 3 of those. And so these just set a pretty clear overall tone for these songs. This category always has at least one instrument that just makes the song sound silly. It's pretty obvious that if you tried to use Fluffing a Duck for any serious purpose, it would fall pretty flat. This group of Kevin MacLeod songs are by far the most famous group, and that is probably because of how much they are used on YouTube in its early days. Not to mention, there's also been hundreds of funny compilations of vines or cut together YouTube videos that use these songs as well. The second song we're looking at is Rights, which is on the album Thatched Villagers from 2014. This is actually a pretty interesting song because it is mostly used very consistently as a fantasy soundtrack. Let's have a listen. It and songs like it appear on D&D background music playlists and various fantasy or medieval video projects. But the reason I brought up Rights specifically is because it represents a huge part of Kevin's catalog of music that is intended for one purpose and one purpose alone, regardless of what that specific purpose is. It is less of general background music and instead is intended for one context. He's made horror music, old film music, an entire polka album, and a Christmas album. It just goes to show that beyond just being generic background music, a lot of Kevin's music is also used for specific purposes, and I think that's part of the reason why it's blown up so much in blockbuster films and games and so on. The last song I feel is important to talk about is Cypher, which is off of his light electronic album, also from 2014. This, to me, is the most important song because it represents the most YouTube-like songs. Take a listen. I mean, if you don't feel that instant nostalgia, I urge you to check your pulse, because to me, that only brings back the fondest memories of scouring the internet for free Clash of Clans gems, maybe the not so fond memories of trying to find Minecraft mod installation tutorials because I could never figure out how to do that. That pleasant synth that flies on top of everything else immediately brings you that instant YouTube vibe, and it paints a pretty clear picture, whether Kevin likes it or not, of YouTube. Songs that also fall in this category that everyone should recognize are Carefree, Wallpaper, Move Forward, and Hyper Fun. These are undescribably fun songs, and honestly, it's super impressive that as simple as they are, they're able to draw as much emotion as they do. What sucks about this video is that I can't go through and tell you why every single Kevin MacLeod song is special and unique in its own way. While diluting his discography down to 3 categories is simple and interesting, it doesn't do this man justice. He truly is not only the father of internet music, but also the savior of the internet's audio landscape. It's funny, because when I sat down to make this video, it initially was all a joke. Obviously, this music has been memed to shit and back, and no one can really put their finger on why or how it happened. But after researching and making this video, I really garnered a certain love for Kevin's discography, and I truly believe his music deserves appreciation. I feel like we should make a music hall of fame. Just put Kevin in there as the first entry. In fact, it's probably the best